There are many shows on the air which are basically interview shows, and they start out in a very austere setting. There's the interviewer, he sits behind a desk, and in the background somewhere, some figure in the news sits. He's later in the show blinded by a spotlight. I'd like to present one of these shows. They start off very dramatically, something like this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Wallace, Nightline. Our guest in the studio tonight is Dr. Werner von Werner, one of the many German missile scientists involved in our American missile program. Dr. von Werner, I suppose the question most often asked you were involved in the German missile program, you're now involved in our missile program. Was the fact that you were involved in the German missile program a matter of political conviction, or was this political expediency on your part?
Oh boy, that one, huh? Actually, I didn't have that much to do with it, to tell you the truth. This is back around 1940. I was working at a beer garden in Stuttgart. And like on Friday night, you know, the waitresses and the waiters, we'd go to one of the girls' pads, you know, and order some pizzas and some schnapps and get half-gassed, you know. And I used to fool around with these inventions, you know, and I'd take this tin can and put a firecracker underneath it, and I like the firecracker, and that thing go 4 or 5 feet up in the air, you know. And everybody'd say, what the hell was that? Or what a nut that Warner is. Somebody want to get Warner's hat, you know, something like that. Except this one party, the little guy walks over, he's got a little mustache and piece of hair falling on his eye. He says, hey, that was interesting what you did with a tin can there. What causes that? I said, well, see, that's, for every action, there's a reaction, you see. And the force of the firecracker is first of all, it starts toward the floor. But the top of your can, see, it's... Every time I do it, it jumps forward. He says, what do you call that thing there? I said, that's a rocket. It's named after my landlord, Irving Arcott. See, I was about 3 months behind an aunt, you know, and comes a knock at the door, and he says, look, Warner, you know, you gotta knock off with the firecrackers in the middle of the night, you know, because the neighbors are complaining, and don't hand me the Madame Curie bit, you know what I mean? But her landlord wanted to do about her rent, that's his business, I want my rent, see? I said, look, I'm working on an invention. If it works out, I'll name it after you. He says, you're gonna call it an Irving? No, I'm going to call it a rocket. So anyway, the guy at the party, little mustache, piece of hair falling in his eyes. He says, that would make a terrific weapon, you know that? I said, well, you'd have to get right on top of the guy. And, you know, you'd have to hit him in the face or something like that. With a tin can, they easily hurt him. I think your big problem is going to be getting that close to the guy, you know? He says, no, what if we took 100 firecrackers and a great big tin can, see? I said, well, we sorted that, but your problem there is, see, by the time you light the fuse on the last firecracker, he said, look, the reason I'm asking you all this, I'm head of the German people. I said, oh. I says, you know, congratulations. I hadn't seen a paper in a couple of days, so I took a version. He says, would you like to be involved in our missile program, you know? I said, well, you know, I got a pretty good thing going at the beer garden, you know. He says, look. He says, it's a civil service job. $3.50 a month. When you're 55, you go down to Baden-Baden and forget the whole scene. So anyway, all they want me to do, I sign these requisitions. Liquid oxygen, I don't know what it is, I'm signing Warner von Warner, and every month $3.50, there it is, like clockwork. Anyway, make the long story short, we lose the war. And the Americans come to me, and I've been getting offers from the Russians and all that, and they say, look, Warner, we've seen your name on some of the requisitions, and how'd you like to be involved in the American missile program, I said, look, actually, I didn't have that much to do with it, you see. I was at this party in Stuttgart, see. They said, never mind, we need a name. So anyway, I took the job, and there it is, $4.50 a month. When I'm 55, I go down to Fort Lauderdale, and it's a pretty good deal.
Well, Dr. von Warner, our time is running out on us. We have now put a man in space. The Russians some 2 or 3 weeks before that had put a man in space. Was this the eventual plan of the German missile program to put a man in space?
Oh, we put a man in space. Oh, sure, back in 1940. My brother-in-law Herman, I put him in.
Well, now, that's amazing because, of course, the big problem we found putting a man in space was the problem of reentry. And apparently in 1940, you had already solved that problem.
Well, what problem is this you're talking about?
Well, Dr. von Warner, we want to thank you very much for stopping by and wish you continued success.
Well, thank you very much. Now, you going to give me the money or what, you send a check to me?
I have the deadly fear that the next crisis is not going to be created by the diplomats, but rather by an American tourist in Europe. I always live in fear that when Kennedy and Khrushchev meet, some scene like this might take place.
Well, Martha, you wanted to see Vienna. What a nothing city this turned out to be. Hey, buddy. La Charge, no, wait a second. Keskel, well, you think with all the money we're sending over here, they'd speak English, wouldn't you, Martha? Martha? See that short, stocky guy over there? That's him. Yeah, I know that's him. Don't be. Come on, bring Brucey along with you. Don't be silly. Say, aren't you? Don't tell me. Khrushchev, right? Nicky Khrushchev, right? You son of a gun. Yeah, Martha and I seen you on television. Well, you're in town for the talks, I guess. Yeah, I read about it in the paper. What the hell do you want with West Berlin, anyway? I mean, have you ever been there? Have you? It's really not that great. Well, I mean, that's your problem. I sell used cars. You don't sell used cars, I won't interfere in diplomacy. Right, listen, Nicky. You don't mind my calling you Nicky, do you? Great. That's what we called you back in Iowa, Nicky or Tubbo, something like that. No offense. Would you mind if I got a picture with you and Martha? Huh? Yeah, honey, you want to stand right next to him there? And let's kind of get a gag shot of some kind. Wait, let me get a light reading first. And 5.6 we're using. No, it's Japanese. Really funny, isn't it? I mean, you think 10 years ago we were fighting them, and here I am shooting you with one of their cameras. I'll tell you what. How about you kind of bending Martha over? Sort of Rudolph Valentino, with her, get a little fire in the eyes. She's no prize, but... The folks back home won't believe I ran into you. That's great. There we are. Great. And would you mind one with a little Brucey, honey? Yeah, he's our 18-month-old son, little Brucey. Cute little boy, isn't he? You want to hand him to Nicky there? Oh, look at the face he's making at him. Beautiful. Yeah, I use the same light read. What's the matter? Oh, jeez, I'm sorry. Honey, you got a towel or something? But what was that, mohair? Oh, golly. Well, you know, kids. Right. Listen, Martha, you before you change them, you want to get a picture of me and Nicky over there? Mm-hmm. And we're kind of gagging up a little bit. I got a kind of arm wrestling, you know. You know how to, you just put your forearms together and the strongest guy, bend it. Only him, let me win on that. You see, it'd be great. I'll hang it up in the use kind of. No, I say let me win. Don't take that, Martha. Don't take that one. Watch it, Nicky. Watch it. You're gonna break something there. Okay, you can let go. Whew. I think he broke something, Martha, Well, that's smart. What are you, some kind of commie nut? Jeez, smart. Let's get a picture of that statue over there, Martha. Watching television from 3 to 5, you're almost forced to watch children's shows because that is all that's on at those hours. And there's very good reason for this. No matter where you turn on the dial, you're always going to find a kiddie show. And that is because the station makes such a killing on the kiddie show, they literally have to put it on. And it's a very low-cost show to put on. First of all, they need an announcer who preferably is not too bright to begin with, you see? In fact, the closer his mental age to the kids, usually the better the show. They need an oversized clown costume or Buster Brown suit for him to wear. They need some bleachers for the kids to sit in, the studio audience, and a cartoon machine. And with these 4 basic ingredients, you can present any children's show. This is my sort of a stereotype of all kiddie shows, the Uncle Freddy show, and they always start out the same. They start out with a slide, and then out this idiot walks in this clown costume, and a little hat on top of his head. If he were anywhere else, they would put him away for a couple of years, First of all, he talks to the kids before the show goes on the air. Boys and girls, we're going to go on the air in just a minute. And one thing I have to tell you, during the cartoon, you boys and girls can't talk in the studio because that goes out over the air, see? And we've instructed our announcers, if you boys and girls talk during the cartoon, they're instructed to belt you right in the mouth. So let's get okay, boys and girls, we're going to get ready for the show, and there's the announcer man, and he's going to talk in that mic, and then I'll come back and talk to you boys and girls. Hey.
Well, hi, boys and girls! Well, boys and girls, today is Thursday, right? And what do we always do on Thursday, boys and girls? Let's ask the boys and girls in our studios what we always do on Thursday, boys and girls. What we always do on Thursday, boys and girls? What the hell do we always do on Thursday, boys and girls? Thursday is mailbag day, boys and girls. Don't you remember that? Haven't you boys and girls ever seen the show before? That's right, Thursday is mailbag day, boys and girls. Let's get right into our mailbags. Oh, 2 announcements I have to make, boys and girls, before I get into the mailbag. Come on now, boys and girls. So settle down now, boys and girls. That isn't nice to laugh at Uncle Freddie like that. You don't laugh at your mommies and daddies. You do laugh at your mommies and daddies? Two announcements I have to make, boys and girls. As you know, we usually show the Three Stooges cartoons on Thursday. But as I mentioned last week, they've been holding Uncle Freddie up on price. Uncle Freddie has decided not to buy that show. I have bought a new cartoon show, which isn't quite as expensive. I think you boys and girls will enjoy very much, called the Army Training Films. And the title of our cartoon today, boys and girls, is Frostbite, so you want to be sure and watch that. Oh, one other announcement, boys and girls. Today we're adding the name of a new sponsor to our blacklist. We're adding the name of Pops, new breakfast cereal. And, of course, all the members, boys and girls in good standing in the Uncle Freddie Club, that, of course, means you can't have Pops for breakfast in the morning. Or play with any little boys and girls who do eat Pops. Well, let's move on now into our mailbag, boys and girls. Here's the first letter. Comes to us from Arnie Peterson, and it's written in crayon. We've asked you boys and girls to please be careful in printing each letter, because Uncle Freddie can't always make out all your words. And it's written on a bag also. Anyway, this one says, Dear Uncle Freddie, the part... We're going to start printing these from now on, boys and girls, aren't we? The part of the show that I enjoy the most is when you talk to Mr. Puppet. We'll be doing that on Friday. And he says, all the little boys and girls in my neighborhood come in and watch it on my TV set. And we roll on the floor and hold our sides. And my mommy, that looks like, told me to sit down and write you this letter. And that, as I said, is from Arnie Peterson, and he's 34. Okay, boys and girls, let's... Sonny, shh. Son, shh. Sonny, be quiet. Sonny, what's your name? Brucey. Uh-huh. And how old are you, Brucey? You're 4. Would you like to see 5, Brucey? Then don't talk in the studio. There is one little letter I did want to bring up because we've received a number of them like this. This is from a Freddie Furno. Freddie Furno, is that? He's age 7. And he writes in, he says, Dear Uncle Freddie, I sent in for the $27 decoding ring. And the 3 rooms of carpeting. And instead I got back some pictures of older girls in sort of bathing suits. That was a little slip-up in Uncle Freddie's office, boys and girls. That's a little service Uncle Freddie runs for some of the older boys and girls. So if you might hang on to them for 10 or 12 years, Freddie, or maybe you might want to send it back to Uncle Freddie, and I'll send you back the magic decoder. Don't mail them, Freddie. Well, that's all the time time we have for our mailbag, boys and girls. Let's all get up now, and we'll start marching, and that'll be the signal for our cartoon. Okay, everybody start marching and wave to your mommies and daddies as you go by the camera. That's the way, boys and girls. Keep waving. That's the way. Let's keep going, son. That's the way. Right out the door, mark fire escape. There you go.
I did a concert tour not too long ago, and on the concert tour you go from one town to another and you don't know where you are. What you get to watch is usually afternoon television, which is terrible. If you think evening television is bland, you should try watching afternoon television. But we usually would get to see a lot of commercials on television, primarily commercials, and kiddie shows. You get to see a lot of those. And with the commercials, if you get bugged with a particular commercial, it really bothers you, the best thing to do is to change the end of the commercial. You put your own end to the commercial. And this is an example of the type of thing you might want to do. This is a commercial which I have seen a couple hundred times of the dentist talking to the patient in the chair. And the dentist says to him, Mr. Jones, I recommend you try to brush your teeth after every meal.
Oh, well, Doc, I can't carry a toothbrush around with me all day.
Oh, hell, that's right, yeah. Then this is another one. This is another example of the type of thing. This is probably the worst of the sinus congestion commercials, if you can imagine that. This is the one where the guy is shown with the bottles on his forehead. It shows him actually draining. And he says, "Say, I don't know what it is. I've had this sinus headache all day." Oh, it's no wonder, Harry. Somebody's pasted some bottles to your forehead. There are a lot of shows on television which are travelogue shows, you know, where some university professor will go down to Peru or somewhere like that with a little 8mm brownie, you know, and he takes all this jungle footage. And then he comes back to the States, and they put him in the hospital to recover from these rare diseases that he's picked up down there. And somehow these travelogue shows hear about it, you see, and they approach him. They ask him to sign this release that they can show on television as film. Now, this is fine. The one problem with these shows, the only person who knows anything about the film is the guy who shot it, the professor, and he is not a trained television personality. You see, he's not familiar with many of the taboos on television. So I would like to present this travelogue show. Usually it starts with a very saccharine announcer, and he comes on something like this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to Strange Peoples, Strange Lands. Our guest in the studio tonight is Colonel Nicholas Ross. Colonel Ross has recently returned from a trip to Peru and has brought back some very exciting film with him, which he calls The 7 Lost Cities of the Incas. Colonel Ross.
Well, thank you very much, John. This was indeed a very exciting trip that we made to the 7 lost cities of the Incas. Here you see us in the modern harbor of San Sebastopol. A harbor cut out of the heart of the Peruvian jungle. Here you see us loading up our boats preparatory to making the trip. The couple there on the dock is the American consul, his very charming wife, Gloria. They had thrown a farewell party for us the night before at the consulate. The woman standing directly to the left of the consul is my wife, Margot. She had hoped to make the trip with us. However, at the last minute, she came down with a sudden attack of dysentery. I forgot. She was taken suddenly ill. Here he is 2 days later being towed off a sandbar in the harbor of San Sebastopol. He was still a little hungover from the farewell party thrown by an American consul and very charming wife, Chloe. Well, here you see us 2 days later, once again loading up the boats, about to depart from the harbor of San Sebastopol. Yeah, once again, there's the American consul, very charming wife, Gloria. You just get a glimpse here of my wife running for the house. That's no good either. Well, here we are, finally underway. We only had 4 weeks in which to cover the 7 lost cities of the Incas. We had already blown a week in the harbor of San Sebastopol. Here you see us arriving at the first of the 7 lost cities of the Incas. As you can see, there's quite a bit of excitement here as we arrive. It happened they had a total eclipse of the sun, and it coincided with our arrival. And the superstitious natives began to pray to us as sun gods and begged us to please return the sun to their skies. Well, which we did. Well, as I say, we didn't have too much time to spend in any one village, so here we are off the next morning and arriving late that afternoon at the second of the 7 lost cities of the Incas. Here you see us being greeted by the chief. They had a rather strange custom in this village of providing each male visitor with a bride for his stay. We tried to explain to them that this was not the custom in our country. However, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. We spent a total of 2.5 weeks in this village. Which only left us 1 day in which to cover the other 5 lost cities, but thank you very much.